And a very warm welcome. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here today for the side event and also online. Today's event is really about turning visibility into action, so making sure that the commitments that we've made under MEAs translates into real progress on chemicals and waste. It's also about using digital tools smartly to overcome fragmentation and to support better policy decisions. My name is Angela, and I'm a legal officer with UNEP, and I'm supporting the coordination of the InforMEA initiative, or the InforMEA project, to strengthen access to environmental information and to support digital cooperation in international environmental governance. So to begin, it's my honor to invite Patricia Kameri Mbote, Director of UNEP's Law Division and one of the co-chairs of the InforMEA initiative, to share her opening thoughts.
Excellencies, colleagues, friends, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this important side event. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. And a special thanks to our co-organizers, the BRS Secretariat and the 25 other MEA secretariats and entities which make up the initiative, as well as the many partners that make InforMEA possible. As many of you know, the InforMEA initiative is a long-standing and unique example of digital multilateral cooperation in action. Over the past 15 years, what began as a joint effort to improve access to information on international environmental law and commitments has grown into something much more: an open, inclusive digital platform that connects the dots between international environmental agreements, national implementation, and the global goals we are all working toward. InforMEA today is more than just a repository of treaties. It is a shared infrastructure, a public good that empowers governments, civil society, and MEA secretariats alike to access legal and institutional information in a clear, coordinated, and meaningful way. And most importantly, it aims to do so in a way that supports countries with differing capacities, helping to level the playing field and promote inclusive governance. We are proud that this collaboration has helped improve institutional memory, legal coherence, and the ability to track implementation across multiple agreements. This is especially important in complex and cross-cutting areas like chemicals and waste, where coordination and clarity are critical for effective action. As we look to the future, we are more committed than ever to take the InforMEA initiative to the next level, to strengthening its tools, broadening its reach, and ensuring it continues to evolve in response to country needs and emerging challenges. In a world increasingly shaped by digital transformation, we must ensure that these tools serve the people and the planet, not just the platforms. Today's side event offers an opportunity to focus on how digital innovations can help us to bridge the gap between MEA commitments and SDG implementation. It is about seeing what is often unseen: the underlying legal and governance architecture that supports environmental action. I look forward to continuing this journey together as we shape a more informed, inclusive, and sustainable path forward. Thank you all for being here.
We thank the Director of the Law Division for those opening remarks. I think they are very helpful in giving a bit of background to the InforMEA initiative. So with that, I'm going to start with Christina.
Thank you very much, Angela, and welcome to the side event. Good afternoon. I hope you had a quick, nice lunch break. It's a privilege to welcome you on behalf of their secretariat, which is called CITES, Secretariat, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna. As a very recent chief of a projects and out unit section It's my honor to represent the Secretariat, first of all, as a founding member of the InforMEA initiative with our Secretary General, Yvonne Higuera, and also together with UNEP for the last 12 years. Let me start by saying that, first of all, with a decade of experience in managing very different environmental challenges through different legal instruments, permitting systems, compliance mechanisms, CITES brings a very valuable insights to InforMEA, particularly as these tools, as we can see, became very, very relevant in the context of digital environmental governance. From the perspective of participation in InforMEA as MEA, as an example, CITES Secretariat has recently benefited from the initiative through the joint development of their new e-learning courses, and these courses will be available very soon in a platform which will reach more than 70,000 users. Then let me also say a few words about the SDGs and where we are right now. So we all know that we have less than 5 years to 2030, and we recognize that there is a number of SDGs, and in the context of today's event, we have SDG 12 and SDG 3, which are still under the progress, and they are underachieved and under track. And it also concerns SDG that we are working on in the Secretariat when it comes to the wildlife, illegal wildlife trade, which is SDG 15. And I think this is mostly because we have very diverse nature and cross-cutting nature of these issues. And I think also due to such issues as the data which is required and also the policy coherence to achieve the SDGs. We also acknowledge the critical role that different MEAs, and there are a big number of those, as you know, play in achieving SDGs, providing the legal framework, collaborative platforms, which are needed to advance global targets. And in case of CITES Secretariat, just let me give an examples. We also see that linkages to relevant SDGs, they are still underutilized by parties when they do their national reporting and planning. So this problem, I think, it's very diverse and it actually spans across different MEAs. In today's event, we will hear about the new goals section. And just to say, this development of this section is extremely timely effort, which will actually making visible how MEA's commitments support specific SDG targets. And we do hope that these sections, once fully developed, and also we'll see later today, it will enable parties to highlight individual MEAs' contributions to SDGs, while also identifying synergies, and what is the most important, I think, is avoiding duplications with other conventions. And platforms like InforMEA really demonstrates how digital integration can bridge information gaps, ensure policy coherence, and also foster meaningful collaboration. Also looking ahead, let me just say that let's use the event today and also the future engagements through InforMEA to explore how we can, using our collective intelligence, to close gaps, align policies, and also help parties at national level to do their job better. In conclusion, CITES is very, very pleased to be here today, and also very committed to strengthen InforMEA as a platform for digital and also legal coordination, and also as a tool which helps us to accelerate SDG progress towards 2030. Thank you very much, and look forward to very fruitful discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Christina. That was super. I think it's great to have the continued support of the CITES Secretariat in advancing this initiative. With that, I'm going to now hand over to Monica Stankovic, the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, who will offer some scene-setting remarks to further ground our conversation in the current global context. Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Angela. And I should start by, of course, thanking UNEP Law Division to provide a home for this marvelous initiative. And it's always a pleasure to listen to Patricia. Of course, we wished she could be here, but we are also mindful that it's not possible for her to be at every place we would like her to be. And welcome, Christina, to CITES. You've joined recently, and it's nice that we meet here at the InforMEA event. And I was requested to talk about which is the topic of this side event, and that is InforMEA progress for chemicals and waste conventions and vis-a-vis SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And we all, of course, remember that SDGs were created 2015. So it's InforMEA is as old as SDGs, in fact. And we know SDGs embrace this vision of sustainable development that encompass the social, environmental, and economic development. And I think these particular perspectives are really embedded also within the chemicals and waste conventions, where we recognize that to address many of the environmental challenges we are facing, we have to look into economic, social dimensions as well. And this is in text of our conventions, but it's also in practical work we do. And let me give you an example of mining for gold, which is a mercury problem, but maybe more so is a problem of economy, of human well-being, social interactions, but also the livelihood options and so forth. So, of course, we, based on SDGs, all recognize that these are intertwined. I would like to offer a reflection about, because you all mentioned that we have still 5 years to go. So what we can expect will happen around 2030, that the world will come together to rethink and to improve what is the next vision, what is the next framework within which we would be pursuing the goal of sustainable development. And how we come into this process is extremely important. Or if I can put it in another way, what is different compared to 2015? And I have identified just few maybe issues that it's not really a full list, but let me start by reminding us about the COVID and the fact that we have now a pandemic treaty text negotiated, because we recognize the link between the environment, human health, and animal health. And we also have One Health initiative exactly recognizing these interconnections. For me personally, it was important to appreciate that in 2021, United Nations Statistics Commissions recognized that we should not only measure the economic progress through GDP, but there is also natural capital. And there is now a system in place how to account for natural capital and move beyond GDP, which has been dominating after the Second World War. But nowadays we know it's not only about income countries have. Or then we have a UN General Assembly adoption of a new resolution on the right to a clean and healthy environment. I think all these developments put us, meaning those who really see these interlinkages and work on the environment, in a much stronger position in shaping these future SDGs. But of course, how we do it together matters a lot, because if each of the conventions or process or countries come with their own narrative, which is slightly different from another narrative, we are not really winning anything in this upcoming global discourse. Instead, we should come up together with a common narrative. And for me, looking forward, InforMEA, our role is exactly to enable that. And it's, of course, goes to, as we are now at the BRS conventions, also bridging the gap between the progress we actually achieve on the ground under Basel, Rotterdam, and Minamata Convention, and how well it is known when we have leaders coming together and discussing the environmental crisis and the environmental challenges. We have obviously a gap here. And we now, with these upcoming years, have to continue efforts to bridge this gap. And InforMEA, again, has already helped us. And I see a huge potential to do even more in the future within InforMEA. And of course, each of us MEAs, we work on how to translate technical work in a more accessible information and visuals, dashboards to support national work. But again, if we come and do it together, we align our efforts, the impact is much higher. And just to give you a concrete example, if I would pose a question, how much funding there is and impact of that funding to help implement conventions through multiple funds we have, probably you wouldn't be able to find a single dashboard that will give you in 5 minutes an idea where we stand and how that impacts the progress or contributes to the progress. And what we are now working within InforMEA is to exactly do that, to go MEA by MEA and to create this big picture of the investment that the parties themselves have made into helping to achieve this progress, and do it, of course, through some dynamic dashboards and in the way that it's at least semi-automated, so it's not one-off effort, but a system that we are creating. Then there is also a lot of work being done to look into the outcomes of national reporting. This is where our data on progress that's the source of our data on progress. And InforMEA has been really doing great in posing these basic questions, why it's not comparable, what we can do, that we can report together, what it makes sense, how we can align ourselves here. And on a more granular level, I think that's partly the challenge related to the lack of formal recognition between MEAs on the level of COPs, of our reporting system and so on. But again, we have made a great progress in this regard. You maybe were in position to participate in a number of events where we had the executive secretaries of CITES, Ramsar, CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity for the first time. And I feel that there's so much openness now to look into coherence on the international level and the national level, that of course we need InforMEA to make it real, and then to equip us with tools that really demonstrate the benefit of it. And I have sort of a passion for reporting tools because I've been dealing with them for a long time. And on the even more granular level, it's important how those are constructed, and we have to learn from each other which are the best practices. On one hand, you may have a reporting questions that calls for descriptive narrative input, and of course it will make it extremely difficult to compare or to derive any conclusions or be conclusive in a systematic manner. On the other hand, you can have a tool like Minamata Convention has, which is structures along the questions yes or no, and then you provide supplementary information. So I mean, these things are important if we have this big aim of reporting once for several purposes. And we would like to, again, InforMEA to continue to provide this, the platform so we can work together on those issues. And the last point, and I'm hoping I'm not too long, please don't mind to interrupt me, is about digital transformation to support national action. And of course, we recognize that the governments will benefit from accessible, coherent, and usable tools to track progress, identify gaps, and to bring the national legislation in line with the global commitments. And we just heard from Patricia that the world is being shaped by the digital transformation and innovation, but what that means really for us, for MEAs, for parties working on implementation of commitments of MEAs, are we really upkeeping with the world? And I really wish moving forward that we receive even more support from parties, that the issue of data and digitalization are really prioritized as a strategic approach and strategic asset, not only to allow us to do more with less resources, but basically we cannot stay behind. Let's have an ambition that we will be actually paving the way how to do it. So again, if each of us have this call on our own, are we really heard? But if we are together within InforMEA and we can already make a business case that through this outcome we have served parties better, through this tool we have made that work easier, we are already in a position to demonstrate concrete benefits of that. And I wish this work really to continue in the, I mean, at least until 2030. But I think at that time we will all have to rethink how we do our work. But for this next 5 years, I would like to wish InforMEA and ourselves that we have sufficient resources to continue with the work, and we are ready to, of course, contribute as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. I think that was a super thoughtful and sort of a grounded overview. And I feel like it's also a clear reminder of both the urgency and the complexity of the reporting task ahead as well, and why we need better data, stronger legal governance, and inclusive collaboration through this initiative. These are really essential as we move forward. So now to take us into the heart of today's theme, I'm pleased to invite Katie Ayres. She's an international environmental law expert who's working with Laws Africa and the InforMEA initiative, and she'll walk us through the InforMEA Global Goals section. Her presentation is really about highlighting how this tool helps to visualize the contributions of MEAs to the SDGs, with also a special focus on chemicals and waste in line with the overarching theme of the BRS COPs. So Katie, the floor is yours. She's connecting online, so.
Thanks, Raluca. Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly present on behalf of the Collective Intelligence Unit and the InforMEA project, the new goals section on InforMEA. I don't know how many of you will be familiar with this section. We launched it just early on, actually just last year in December. There was always a goals section on InforMEA, which previously was mapping between MEA strategic plans and the SDGs and the Aichi targets. And then what instigated the redevelopment of the section were two things. And Raluca, could you just skip, please? Thank you. And this is just a bit of background, but obviously with the agreement of the Global Biodiversity Framework, we needed to update those mappings to the Aichi targets. Also, our partner DART, the Data and Reporting Tool for MEAs, which is actually one of the digital tools supported by InforMEA, worked with UNEP WCMC to produce a background document for the Bern 3 conference on implementation of the GBF. And this background document, which you can see the title there, presented quite a comprehensive set of mappings between the Global Biodiversity Framework and biodiversity-related conventions, but also 4 of the conventions in the chemicals and waste cluster as well. It also presented mappings between the GBF and the SDGs. Those mappings you'll be familiar with, they're available on the CBD website now. But so the combination of those and also the need to try to really visualize these mappings as effectively as possible was what instigated the overhaul of the section. You can see there on the slide the key mappings that we present on the goals section. So that's between the Global Biodiversity Framework and the SDGs, as I mentioned, and then the SDGs and the MEA strategic plans and frameworks, and then again the GBF and the MEA strategic plans and frameworks. Those are the core mappings presented in the section, but we don't limit the alignments that we show to MEA strategic plans and frameworks, of course, because not all of the partner MEAs to the InforMEA project have a strategic plan. And so in that background paper I mentioned, UNEP WCMC made it clear that there were other mappings to treaty texts, COP decisions, and so on. And we've tried to present those as well, and therefore we've tried to create a very overall and comprehensive mapping. So next slide, please, Raluca. I just wanted to, in this slide, just give you a quick idea of what the section looks like and how it kind of works. So you can see there it's hosted on the InforMEA platform. And the masked at the top, there's a goals tab, and so you can navigate straight to the section. I've included here screenshots from the SDGs and obviously from goal 12, given the chemicals and waste focus of the side event. And so that's how you would navigate into goal 12. But then what you can see on the right hand side is if you scroll down, you're going to see the mappings and alignments. And we present those in two different ways. We worked with a graphic designer with OdaWeb, our web developers, to try to visualize the alignments in a very clear way that gives you that oversight in kind of just one page. And so what you can do, this is just a screenshot obviously, but what you can do there with that kind of map view is it just gives you that immediate sense of which MEA strategic plans and frameworks are relevant to goal 12. And then even deeper than that, how many targets, goals, indicators within those frameworks are relevant. And you can do all that just by using the hover over feature. And we have tool tips so that you can just stay exactly within that diagram. And it just gives that immediate sense of what are the key actors at play here? What are the key targets and goals that are relevant here to goal 12, SDG goal 12? And then below that, we have the accordion view, and that gives a bit more detailed information. So I'll come back to that. I just wanted to briefly touch on why do we have a goals section on InforMEA? And some of the other speakers have already mentioned, and of course Patricia has already introduced InforMEA, but really it's about this focus on collective intelligence of knowledge systems. And MEAs which cut across. Have you lost me? Can you hear me?
We can still hear you.
Great. Sorry, I've frozen, but if you can hear me, that's fantastic. So the MEAs cutting across the environmental issue areas and all this fragmented information, which is what InforMEA, of course, is all about, to bring this dispersed environmental legal data together and making it searchable across those environmental topics. Well, that's what the goals section really is all about as well. So we wanted to communicate the collective role that MEAs play in the context of the global goals and frameworks, so including the GBF and the SDGs. And in doing so, we want to identify potential opportunities for alignment, cooperation and collaboration and implementation. And that includes in relation to NBSAPs, reporting, capacity building, and all other MEA related areas like that. Next slide, please, Raluca. So this is the nuts and bolts. This is how did we do this? We're very lucky with the InforMEA project to have access to some great tools and software. And one of these is the Pool Party Semantic Indexing software, which is a auto tagging and taxonomy creation platform. So what we did is we created the strategic plans within Pool Party, and you can see here the InforMEA Goals Section project has all those strategic plans there as taxonomies. Next slide, please, Raluca. And we use the feature of Pool Party, which allows mapping between taxonomies. In order to produce better auto tagging, you actually create alignments between concepts within your taxonomy. And we use that to essentially recreate the mappings from the Burn 3 document that I mentioned, and also the existing mappings we had on the InforMEA previous goals section. And so we also map to law and environment ontology taxonomy, which we have on InforMEA, and we mapped each target and goal to the most relevant keywords, and we did that manually. And I'll show you in the last slide what that kind of looks like. Next slide, please, Raluca. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly mention, we've heard from Minamata, with the MEAs that don't yet have a strategic plan or framework, of course, there's still content and action going on that's very relevant to these goals. So, and this is reflected in the Burn 3 paper, maps not just the strategic plans, but also to policy documents, top decisions, treaty texts, and so on. And so you can see we have a Communitoso version of the Minamata Convention in another one of our platforms. And what that means is we're able to just add here tags on the hand side to the global biodiversity framework, but also the SDGs. We could do, combining that and the pool party mappings that we could do manually kind of in the software that we have access to. It then enabled OdaWeb, the web developers, to present it. Yeah, you can skip to the next slide, Raluca, actually, because that just shows they were then, because we already have APIs between Indigo, where this Minamata Convention machine readable version is, and between Pool Party, there's a Drupal extractor sync. It means that we can just show the mappings quite easily. So Raluca, next slide, please. So this is the final visualization. You can see the main strategies and policies. Next slide, please, Raluca. That's the SDGs. We have two ways of navigating those. You can use the radial kind of map view again with tooltips and hover over to explore the SDGs. Next one, please. And here are the alignments and linkages, again, this time specifically in relation to 12.4. So as I mentioned, we're able to present this quite easily because we can manipulate, we can add all the mappings in the back in the software that we have access to. Next slide, please, Raluca. I just wanted to mention briefly about keywords. So I said that when we were creating the alignments in Pool Party, we added keywords from the law and environment ontology. This is a work in progress, but what it means is that, next slide, please. Here you can see sound management of chemicals and waste. So if you were to select that keyword, which has been tagged to that specific target, you can then also see there under related content, the other targets, indicators, goals, strategic objectives, and so on in other MEA strategic plans and frameworks which have been tagged with this, which allows you to really get a sense of which MEAs are most active in this area in relation to that specific global goal or target. So that's quite a nice feature. Next slide. And again, you can see there other concepts, waste management, hazardous waste. It just means that you can really drill down immediately to those most relevant goals and targets in the global frameworks. And finally, last slide, I think, Raluca. Yeah, so just next steps, Raluca and I have been in discussion with UNDP, who are already exploring using generative AI to identify within national plans and national reports relevant content based on a specific goal using AI. The plan that we always had was to do this using the software we have access to, which is Pool Party. We can use the Pool Party relevance and categorization features to where we've identified those keywords that are relevant to, say, target 12.4. We could then use our auto tagging, which we do anyway on InforMEA platform. We can extract the most relevant content to target 12.4 based on those keywords. But as mentioned, we will also consider other natural language processing and possibly generative AI to do this kind of a thing, because of course we're very lucky on InforMEA that we have the hard PDF copies of all the national reports and so on from our MEA partners. And finally, we want to add further linkages. If anyone knows of any linkages or is aware of any linkages we're missing, then please do send them our way. It's easy for us to incorporate them. We want to also map some linkages between the Global Chemicals Framework, which has only recently been added to the section. And I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, and I'm so sorry about the issues with joining.
Thanks so much, Katie. I'm glad that the platform worked and the challenges were sorted, because it was really great to see the goals section presented in a bit more detail. It's also really clear how such a tool can, as you've demonstrated, make the often unseen linkages between chemicals, waste, biodiversity, etc., and the SDGs more visible and more actionable for our policymakers. So now we can move on to our next speaker, to Vanessa Aliaga, who's the second secretary at the Permanent Mission of Peru to the United Nations in Geneva. And Vanessa, digital innovation is really transforming how we approach environmental governance, including in the chemicals and waste cluster. Could you maybe share with us your thoughts on how tools like the InforMEA Negotiators Toolkit can support capacity building and improve reporting, and also help negotiators and policymakers to better align their SDG commitments in this area.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Angela, for the question. I think there's a okay. No, thank you so much for the question. I also want to thank InforMEA Initiative for organizing this really timely and important event, as well as my fellow panelists for sharing your thoughts. Essentially, I think in a few words, the InforMEA Negotiators Toolkit contributes essentially to capacity building, to improved reporting, and to help states in their efforts to develop policies and plans that ultimately move us along in achieving the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda. And I'll just give a few examples of how this has been the case for Peru. For example, Peru's Ministry of Environment uses the toolkit and its findings to better inform decision-making and ensure that the policies and plans are evidence-based. The toolkit was used, for example, to make an inventory of unintentional POPs, such as dioxins and furans, to establish a baseline study. And that was part of a Jeff-financed project to help us implement the Stockholm Convention in Peru nationwide. The toolkit in this particular project was really key in determining 10 new emission source groups, and confirmed that open burning practices accounted for 85% of total emissions in 2022 and 92% in 2023. And another way in which the toolkit is useful from a state perspective is that it offers standardized templates, which reduces the time it takes to develop reports, and it improves the data traceability. And it moves us away from rough estimates towards actual calculations that are based on official production data. The toolkit was also used to calculate emissions and releases of mercury from artisanal and small-scale gold mining. And these calculations were very useful for drafting our artisanal and small-scale gold mining plan, which ultimately became the publication and the adoption of our National Action Plan for artisanal and small-scale gold mining in Peru in January of last year. The toolkit has also contributed to helping the state determine that 46.1% of minimum mercury releases are emitted into the air, whereas 34.6% of maximum releases were into the land. And this type of information is critical in helping us tailor the approach that we then take to addressing these kind of emissions going forward. As you can tell, the toolkit has been really useful in very concrete ways. And we think that to further strengthen the toolkit, make it even more useful as a resource for states like Peru, we would propose it offering standards or official guidelines on reporting. It could even integrate a direct upload module. And then sector-specific training to develop kind of online courses that are specialized for mining, for cement, for healthcare sectors. This would also be of great use. So once again, thank you for the question, for the invitation to participate, and looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for that thoughtful reflection and also some additional information. It's also encouraging to hear how other tools, not just the ones that we're talking about, the Negotiators Toolkit and the gold section, can play a practical role in strengthening capacity at the national level, and also streamlining reporting and supporting more informed decision-making. In the meantime, we seem to have a comment from the floor, a question. Please go ahead. Please introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. I am Suzuki Gwai, Senior Policy Advisor for International Chemicals Waste Corporation from the Republic of South Africa. Mine is not a question, but rather share briefly also how the toolkit helped us, particularly when we couldn't get direct, as in the real samples from the various mining industries, and we indicated to them the implications. It was when they saw the results that then they came forward with some empirical data. So it is very helpful. It gives you an indication, and also it assists in prioritization so that you know which sector you ought to prioritize when it comes to putting measures in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mizuki, for that intervention. Mariano Pinheiro, who's the CEO of Tracesurfer. He's also connecting from Latin America to share his perspective from the private sector. Mariano, are you connected? I think we might be having some issues with
Hello.
Oh,
Can you
okay,
hear me?
very good. I hear you very well. So, Mariano, as a CEO of Tracesurfer, you're working on digital product passports and traceability solutions that generate real-time data across supply chains. But how do you see these innovations contributing to the implementation of MEAs and SDG tracking, particularly for chemicals and waste? And what role do you think platforms like InforMEA could play in making this data more usable for policymakers? Mariano, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for the invitation. One of the persistent gaps we see in international environmental law is the lack of granular data, like in-field data, and that data to be verifiable, especially for small and medium enterprises, and especially in under-digitized regions. So traceability tools like we are developing in Tracesurfer can bridge that gap of information. And also, as you said, we are creating digital product passports aligned with emerging regulatory frameworks, such as the ESPR regulation in Europe, and also following some DPP standards internationally that right now are being made or published. So in that way, we help companies and governments understand how not just what is in that product, but where it came from and who made it, which is very important, and how it was handled through the life cycle of that product. So with digital tools, we help actually companies working in field to collect that data, and that data be verifiable so that they can comply with regulations and also legal environmental laws. What we see in platforms like InforMEA is that they could play a key role in connecting like the bottom-up data also with the top-down sort of a way policy making, so we can actually meet in between, in the middle. And also, if public platforms can offer the open standards for data points that has to be collected in the supply chain, and others for technology and data taxonomies, aligned with these international agreements, would be very useful for the private sector to actually plug in our data streams to support that monitoring and compliance and enforcement. So in that sense, interoperability is not just technical, it's a matter of governance strategy to actually close the loop between what happens on the ground for the company that is actually working and uploading and getting that data, and also what's agreed in the policy space in a way. So in a few words, that would be what we see as digital transformation helping the environmental law policy making.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariano. Yep, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your response. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I think we need a more structured dialogue between regulators, technical experts, and innovators like ourselves. And it's not just about asking the private sector to share data. It's about co-developing an actual infrastructure that allows this data to be meaningful and verifiable, which is one of the biggest issues we are facing right now. And also interoperable across systems, and across industries. We, from our side in TraceSurfer, we are contributing with CIRPAS in Europe, which is an initiative from the European community to help shape the technical architecture of the digital product passport. And that kind of initiative could be also mirrored in public platforms like InforMEA, serving as a safe space for shared data protocols and also interoperability rules. So InforMEA could really have a critical role in being that promoter of safe information and data protocols and regulations. So I think the collaboration between the public platforms and that they can offer legal clarity and the private actors contributing with that agility or real world data would be very important. And also to align the standards for digital platform and data collection early, in a global way, because that way we can actually scale the solutions much faster. If we all agree to actually settle a certain standard for example, DPPs, then the scalability of that solution based on a standard would be much, much faster and easy to implement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariano, and sorry to have interrupted you earlier on. I think
No worries.
your feedback really highlights how the work that you're doing on traceability and digital product passports can really bridge these critical gaps that Monica mentioned earlier, and to bring also much needed visibility to chemicals and materials across their life cycle, which again potentially offers real opportunities to strengthen MEA implementation and also to support more informed and timely policy making aligned also with the SDGs. We'll
Yes,
try. I want to turn to Pierre-Jean and ask how you think digital innovation can make chemicals and waste issues more visible and actionable to the younger generation.
Thanks, Angela, for raising a very important point. So I can speak from my experience right now, and I will do as the European focal point for the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. And I can also just tell you that from even my own personal experience, I can see years in youth engagement that you can see in chemicals and waste. You have one that is really at the forefront, that's opacity. You have a lot of issues that are invisible in daily life and that are very difficult to engage with, unless you already operate within a policy or a scientific framework. So in this sense, digital innovation can change this, but only if there is a deployment that is led with purpose. So I identify 3 pathways for that. The first one is that we need community-driven tools. That means that we operate a decentralization of those tools. So with the Children and Youth Major Group, we have documented youth-led platforms that use mobile mapping, citizen science, to identify local hazardous waste points, for example. So that can be open dump sites, industrial leakages, etc. But those tools, especially when there's a collaborative community aspect on everything, they allow people, and in this case, especially young people, to act as guardians of their own environments. So the only caveat on this is that data is rarely integrated into official regulatory frameworks as of that. And that's a gap that needs to be closed. So the second pillar that I would say is that digital platforms themselves need to lower an access threshold. So the current system on chemical governance is not necessarily designed for the average 18, 19, 20 years old that you can see, whether it's in Nairobi, whether it's in Geneva, whether it's in Marseille, anywhere. I can see that whenever we have grassroots-led, community-led initiatives where you work with young professionals and young people to create possibly short-form explainers to explain in a way that is community-oriented, what are the treaty obligations under Basel and Stockholm Conventions, for example, it's very nice and it's extremely helpful. Again, there is a caveat, is that it's volunteer work 99% of the time. So it's often unfunded, often unlinked, and often disconnected from a lot of decision makers. So there is this gap, which is a gap of connection. We need to connect young people, and InforMEA could actually intervene here, I'm pretty sure, because that also amounts to offering a curated interface between digital transparency and multilateral governance. So as of that, you can imagine a youth accessible layer over your new global goals MEA mapping that visualizes treaty performance indicators at local or national levels using formats that can be shared on youth-led media. That can be one avenue for reflection. And I'll go on the third and final pillar that I was thinking about, is that digital literacy is not a universal given. So you have many youth communities in Europe, many youth communities elsewhere, let alone the Global South, that still face obstacles in accessing the bandwidth or language needed to engage with MEA data. And as such, you have a fact, which is that any innovation that excludes those communities risks reinforcing silos that are already pre-existing. And I think that this is really the core point where digital innovation can reduce such disparities and not reinforce them. So yeah, that's the 3 points mentioned.
Thank you so much, Pierre-Jean. I think your perspective is really a vital reminder about this youth engagement. It's not just about inclusion, it's also about, as you said, connection, a youth accessible layer. This is a very concrete idea that I think we're going to follow up on, and tapping into the energy, the ideas, the accountability that young people bring to the forefront of environmental governance, especially in the chemicals and waste agenda, as we've seen this week. You also made a really good point about building digital literacy, which is also very important for us at with the InforMEA project to make it more accessible for people. So for the youth also, not just that they can access information, but so that they can critically engage and contribute solutions and also hold decision makers accountable. So thank you again for your intervention. I'm now pleased to welcome Julien Hortoneda, who's an information officer at the BRS Convention Secretariat and a key contributor to the InforMEA initiative. Julien, we've been speaking a lot about the digital platforms and the tools on environmental governance that have been developed and continue to be developed. But how do the specific platforms or tools that the Secretariat, the BRS Secretariat manages, how do those help to translate technical data into awareness for parties and also for the stakeholders?
Thank you, Angela. First, I would like to thank you, to thank Patricia and Haluka for organizing this event and for all the support that you are giving to the InforMEA initiative. I would also like to thank Monica and colleague for giving such a perspective. And thank you, Pierre-Jean, also for reminding us that we are not only talking to policymakers and parties, but also youth is the future. So it's important to keep in mind. Sorry. Going back to your question, Angela, on the tools that we manage, and maybe to highlight a bit the mechanic of interaction between parties, with MEAs and with InforMEA, and how we can achieve this goal of making information accessible and more accessible to more people. I would like to use a couple of examples from the BRS Convention. The first one that comes to my mind is the database of final regulatory actions. It's basically a database that is nurtured by information from parties, where parties are sharing their regulatory action to control a particular chemical. They are sharing their information on toxicity and ecotoxicity level, on risk assessments, on, of course, identification of the particular chemical, but also social economic impacts that were mentioned by Monica earlier on, and best practices. To echo what Mariano was saying earlier on the need for good quality data and peer-reviewed data, I would like to underscore that the information on the final regulatory actions database is peer-reviewed by an international committee of experts, the Chemical Review Committee under the Rotterdam Convention. As another example from this tool, this kind of data set, still under the Rotterdam Convention, we have the FRA evaluation toolkit and the chemical information assessment tool. This is more for policymakers. It basically shows an example of what one can do when you have good data. Basically, all this information that comes with final regulatory action, which is an obligation for parties to communicate to the Secretariat and to share. We made that chemical information assessment tool to help anyone to see the list of the risks, to see the list of measures, and eventually assess if they should, yes or no, take an action on a particular chemical. I would like to use two more examples. Maybe to respond to Monica questions on the funding and the dashboards. I know the Minamata Convention is also working hard on providing such tools. We have made progress, significant progress, thanks to the generous contribution of Norway and European Union, with basically a map of showing where you have projects to tackle plastic pollution linked to donor investment. So it's helpful for donors to see where there is a need, where plastic waste inventory took place, what are the amounts, what are the risks, and what donors can do or have done or are doing about this. I think it can help greatly for donors to identify priorities and also to coordinate among themselves. And hopefully within InforMEA initiative, and I think this is a discussion that is ongoing, that has started already. We are trying to streamline this kind of approaches to integrate and to make the data more interoperable and also to leverage our efforts. Finally, we were also discussing a lot about national reporting, which is another obligation of parties under the conventions, in particular Basel and Stockholm Convention. And we have published dashboards. I was just looking, for instance, at question 5 on intentional production of POPs. From those dashboards, you can see how many parties have implemented measures to reduce or eliminate illicit chemicals. As a secretariat, we can receive, or we are receiving, in fact, a lot of information. And our goal, and this is really much in line with the clearinghouse mechanism strategy that was adopted in 2017. Our aim is really to make this data available for anyone to use, to interpret, to play around with, and any information that parties are sharing with the Secretariat is then, thanks to InforMEA and the work of integration, data harmonization, is then published on the InforMEA platform and can be compared with other MEAs. And I truly believe this is how we can bridge the gaps, we can reduce the silos that we were mentioning earlier on, and it really helps us to better disseminate parties' information and best practices, which brings us back a little bit on the SDG and the themes of this side event. And I would like to say that in particular, SDG 12.8 and SDG 16.10 are all about sharing information, making information accessible, raising awareness to ensure that we can have a better environment and that we can be in better health. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julien, for your response. And yeah, we are working on streamlining and advancing collaboration. I think many of the tools and the platforms developed, I think they hold really, great potential. But I think, as with any of the approaches that we have and that we're working on, their real value is in how they're used. So it's important to have heard that from you. So last but not least on our panel, I'm delighted to invite Ana Garcia Sanz, who's a communication officer from the Minamata Convention Secretariat. And Ana, I'd like to ask you about what happened recently at the COP5 of the Minamata Convention, which welcomed a digital strategy for the Secretariat to guide its work in leveraging technology and managing knowledge effectively to support the implementation of the convention. But can you share with us how new tools that are introduced to better organize and communicate knowledge, and how these approaches can contribute to shared efforts across MEAs and initiatives like InforMEA to make action on chemicals and waste more visible and accessible?
Thank you, Angela, and all the InforMEA team and partners for this very timely discussion. Indeed, your platform plays a critical role in connecting MEAs and making information more accessible for different audiences. Indeed, the Minamata Convention COP in 2023 welcomed a digital strategy to guide the work of the Secretariat in leveraging technologies and knowledge systems to support the implementation of the convention. If it's available, I will share just a few slides to illustrate our work and some tools that we have developed once that the strategy has been agreed. But the first thing is regarding the digital strategy. There's one paragraph that explicitly indicates and requires the Secretariat to collaborate with the Secretariats of other MEAs and InforMEA to enhance digitalization, interoperability, and information exchange. And here you have a few examples with some partners, actual partners with whom we actually collaborate. We have UN and UNEP with whom we share like standards and we follow on guidelines and governance. We also, of course, collaborate with InforMEA in terms of interoperability, standards, taxonomy, also a community of practice, platforms, and e-learning. Also, we collaborate with the Global Mercury Partnership that I can see them there in terms of dashboards and visualization on Mercury issues. We have a close collaboration with the Secretariat of CBD for our registration system and also cloud services. Of course, we collaborate with BRS on COP IT services, on knowledge management standards and information exchange on chemicals and waste. And we also collaborate with the Global Environment Facility and very recently on projects dashboard interoperability and data exchange. And I will follow now on the next slide with, I will share just 3 examples of very recent developments. One is our project dashboard that provides a dynamic and automatic harvesting data from the Jeff Public website. So we managed to be pioneering on this initiative to automatically collect data to avoid any duplication of efforts and information and not to have any dated information regarding our projects. Here you can see some samples of like the map with some scorecards and the graphs that provide information on the ground. If we move on to the next slide, you will also see on this screenshot, they're very small, but we've been improving our country profiles to be like really data driven, and it's like 90% of our website. And you can see that this information from the projects that I've just referred to also shows on the country profiles where we have also information on the status of implementation, on national reporting, submissions, national focal points, etc. And this section is still growing, and hopefully it provides a good user experience also for our parties to the convention. And the last example that I wanted to share with you is a very recent development, which is our focus area. We've just launched these 12 thematic streams that enable users, not only now parties, but hopefully to a broader audience, including youth groups, to explore the work that is done under the convention in a more meaningful way. And we've structured the content into some like featured news and releases. It also shows COP documents linked to a specific topic, resources, insights, and the work that is done by the convention during the intersessional period. Looking forward, this is my last slide. This year we have our COP in November, and we are going to propose as part of the digital strategy clearinghouse mechanism to serve as a central hub for information exchange, to facilitate access to scientific, legal, and technical resources to support the implementation of the convention. But I also wanted to share this slide because all this clearinghouse and all the tools that we've been developing are based on our 3 pillars of our digital strategy. And one of them is the one that Pierre-Jan mentioned, which is about digital literacy, which is the second one. So we have a first pillar on developing tools and be connected, interoperable, and provide data exchange within this digital ecosystem that it hopefully connects with other MEAs and through InforMEA. But also we want to build stronger partnerships, build digital literacy, and keep innovating for the people and the planet. You can download it here. Thank you very much. And also, before I conclude, I want also to thank our partners, Zoenet, that they are not mentioned here, but they help us transform all our technical language in very public awareness visual. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to Zoenet as well from InforMEA Initiative. It's great to see how the digital strategy is already translating into concrete tools and different things that you've developed on the Minamata website to help enhance knowledge sharing and also to support implementation. I also wanted to say just sincere thanks to all the speakers for your thoughtful and your very grounded contributions. I think all the interventions have really shown us that while these digital tools and platforms are evolving rapidly, the real challenge and also the opportunity lies in how we use them to support governments in meeting their different commitments. So it's not just about innovation for its own sake, but really about making sure that the tools are context sensitive and also aligned with national priorities. So with that, let's open the floor to you all, our participants in the room as well as online. There have been many questions submitted online already. We'd love to hear your questions, your reflections, or your experiences. I have also received a request for an intervention from the floor from Judy Aguilar, who's the co-founder of iCollect, a startup that helps hazardous waste management companies to optimize their operations, to standardize processes, and to increase productivity through advanced technology. So, Judy, we're very keen to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. As part of the Chemical and Waste Youth Platform, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our experience. We are the young constituency to BRS, Minamata, and the Global Framework on Chemicals, and we have a group of more of 20 young leaders from over 30 countries here on the ground at the 2025 BRS COPs. My name is Judy Aguilar. I'm a tech entrepreneur from Mexico, founder of the startup iCollect, a platform that helps hazardous waste management companies operate more efficiently and comply with environmental regulations. I have seen firsthand how digital tools, when designed with a sustainability lens, can improve transparency, accountability, and also the protection of communities. Chemicals and waste mismanagement is not just an environmental problem, it's a human rights crisis. We need stronger laws, smarter tools, and more inclusive systems to ensure no one is left behind, and that begins with action, transparency, and accountability. What doesn't get measured can be managed. When I created the platform, I thought that we were just building a tool to help companies to improve their efficiency, but we soon realized that we were also helping them to do their job better and to protect the people and the environment. At this core, our work is about protecting people. Using technology to prevent the harm is one of the ways that we are standing for the human rights. Experience working with companies across Latin America, I'd like to share three key challenges we have seen in businesses that they face the most. The first one is operational complexity and regulatory compliance, also the lack of visibility and access to information, and the resistance to digital transformation. At iCollect, we use artificial intelligence to improve efficiency and reduce errors, and we generate structured and accessible data to support decision making and environmental reporting. Our tools automate key processes like waste management and waste manifest. We also have route tracking and documentation. We are not just digitizing operations, we are also helping to shape a smarter compliance culture in the waste sector. And also, the companies that previously lack the clear vision over their operation are now able to track every step of their hazardous waste journey, from collection to the final disposal. This is not only improves accountability, but also gives tools for them to prove compliance and reduce the environmental risk. So I really think that technology helps to reduce human error, and we can increase safety from the workers and the communities. With better data and traceability, we can prevent harm and not just react to it. But there is something I have noticed across the sector is that we need to bring more people with tech backgrounds into the conversations, more data scientists, more AI specialists, and more digital thinkers. We also need those minds that actively contribute to the environmental solutions, because technology is not just a support tool, it's a fast track to real and scalable impact innovation. And it doesn't happen when we stay in separate spaces. It happens when we work together. When you bring people who see the world in a different way, you get innovation. You get new ways of solving old problems. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Judy. It's impressive to hear about the work of your startup and the ideas that you've shared, and we look forward to engaging further. Let me just check if there are any questions or interventions from the room before we turn to the ones received online. I see one. Please introduce yourself as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laila. I'm representing Mukti Mandiri Lestari from industry. I'm also part of the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform, and I'm also from academia representing Imperial College London. I have a question because we are talking about data and digitalization. Why do you think we still lack data? Because as a practitioner from e-waste, specifically, we monitor a lot on the global e-waste statistic, that we know that there is one global e-waste statistic partnership that is monitored by the ITU and UNITAR, and we see that many countries do not show the e-waste collection rate even, and we see it as maybe we don't know the reason. Is it because of the lack of accessibility or the lack of capacity of knowing this data, gathering this data from these countries, especially the developing ones? Maybe from the journal. And my second question is maybe directed towards Mr. Julian Hortoneda from the BRS Secretariat. I'm just wondering about your perspective. Do you think MEAs such as the Basel Convention actually open the door for an increase in waste shipments over localized management? Does it actually backlash with the SDG 12, which says waste should be processed as close to its origin as possible, which means local waste management? And also it leads to another question, if I may. Does the BRS Convention have any strategy on supporting parties and member states to enable localized management, particularly on e-waste? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Leila, for your question. I don't see any other requests for the floor, so I'll just see what we've received online. There have been a few coming in, and then we turn to the panel for responses. So one of the questions from our online participants, what barriers exist to the adoption of digital tools in low and middle income countries? And then a second question we've received is, what indicators can be used to measure the effectiveness of digital interventions in chemicals and waste management? So I will turn to our panel now. I'm not sure that we'll have time to go through all of the questions, but maybe we can start with Julien, if that's okay, with the question that was directed to you from Leila about MEAs.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Leila, for your question. Why do we lack data? I think that a lot of information is out there. As a secretariat, we have to receive this information from official channel, from parties, and from proper designated contact and authorities, which can sometimes be a challenge. it also depends on the kind of data that you're looking for. For instance, if we think at inventory data, this is quite difficult to it also costly, and it takes time to collect and assemble. So I think that could be a first answer, maybe, to your question. Then on your question about local treatment of waste, the Basel Convention is about transboundary movement of waste. So it may be a bit out of scope, but nonetheless, through the technical guidelines, I think that this that are published by the Basel Convention, I think this can be addressed. And maybe I missed your third question. Or the third question.
The question about the strategies. Yeah, you can repeat it.
Basically, does BRS Convention has any strategies to support parties and member states to enable localized waste management, particularly on e-waste?
I would say that it's more like a technical assistance plan that is based on needs from parties. And by the way, we also have a database for this to gather and collect needs expressed by parties, but also offers that can be made by other parties to support those in need. And I think through the technical assistance and capacity building program of the of the BRS Convention in general, this is also addressed.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Julian, and thanks again, Leila, for the questions. Can I check which panelists would like to respond to the question about barriers? Which barriers exist to the adoption of digital tools in low and middle income countries?
Yes, I can
Vanessa.
contribute to that.
Oh, Mariano online, you want to contribute to that? Is that what you said?
Yeah, just a comment on that question. Yep. One barrier is the digital literacy and also internet connectivity. And we are also working towards that to actually the companies be able to upload information offline and also integrate global messaging apps that are already in being used by regular persons to actually integrate them to the upload information in an easy way, because sometimes just a username and password to actually upload information is a major barrier for lots of people. So we are actually leveraging on these tools that are already being used by the whole world to actually help us improve that granularity in the data collection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariano. Before we close, I know Vanessa also wanted to respond to that one. And Vanessa, if I can just add, somebody in online also wanted to know the name of the toolkit from Peru that you mentioned at the beginning.
Yes, so it's the InforMEA Negotiators Toolkit. My understanding is that it's one of the module options in, so this is a kit that our Ministry of Environment has been using quite extensively. And I think Mariano, I think is his name, spoke perfectly to the barriers that I was going to identify. Maybe just one more to add is oftentimes a lot of the data that is available is either dispersed throughout a couple of different platforms, and so it's difficult to homogenize and synthesize, and because you can't, compare data from two different sources. You're not sure if they've actually followed the same methodology. So if it's dispersed, that's one challenge. Another challenge is oftentimes the information is available in English. So this it seems like a simple translation, and with the AI and translation tools, things are getting better, but that's still one important barrier. And I think the other one is that states often feel more comfortable when the data has been collected and analyzed by the state. So if the data is stemming from an organization that is outside of either a member state-led organization like the UN, or the member state's capacity as an entity, sometimes there is reticence there. So one of the barriers, or more than a barrier, but rather a recommendation, would be for organizations that are committed to this work and carry out really valuable research and data collection to make sure that they have government buy-in to the data that they are collecting, because oftentimes we see platforms that have so much valuable information and have followed excellent methodology, but the state has simply not bought into that as a finalized product. So those would just be a couple of additions. Did I answer the question about? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We are out of time, but I just want to check with the panelists if there is any pressing final word that you wanted to add before we wrap up. And that goes to you as well, Katie and Mariano online. Any final words or? Okay, I see no further requests.
No.
So, Mariano.
No, not from my side. I think it's covered. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so thank you all very much, and a heartfelt thanks also to all our speakers for the very rich and thoughtful contributions, to our co-organizers for the support in bringing this event together, and to everyone who joined us both in person and online. As you saw also and heard throughout the interventions from the panel, there are really some important developments that are happening, and tools that are emerging to support chemicals and waste governance, including the presentation and demonstration that Katie did at the start. And apologies, Katie, for all of the technical issues, but I'm glad we managed to overcome those. So we're very eager to stay connected with you all as these efforts continue, and also to hear more of your concrete ideas. So please do get in touch with us. I'm in touch with a few of you already. So for the others, please do approach us. Let's continue speaking, because we'd love to hear your ideas and explore potential collaboration and keep the conversation going. So thanks very much again, everybody.